Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering natural health on this year Wednesday morning, Rise and Shine. We're looking at natural health here this morning, and this morning we're looking at a topic: be proactive about your mental health. Be proactive about your mental health, your mental state. Very important for you to be active about this, and we're going to look at some things that are going to help you to be very proactive about being a happier, more peaceful person. So, with that, welcome to our Live Talk program. We'll pray to begin. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank you again for the blessings of your word. We thank you. I thank you, dear Lord, for those who are here, and thank you for this subject matter that is so important and dear, not only to our hearts, but to your heart. I pray, the Lord, that you may bless us, dear Lord, that we might be truly blessed and be at peace. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're looking at this topic here. Be proactive about your mental health, and I'll be sharing two articles this morning here with you. And the first one is kind of about your mental health, but it's not. It's just a general article here that is important about fluoridation, fluoride that is put in water for cavities. And so I'm going to share that firstly before I get into the meat of the matter, the main article, and the main thing I want to talk to you this morning about mental health. As you probably already have heard, that again, new numbers come out again, and suicide in America has increased steadily on the rise year in, year out. More people are committing suicide. So we want to talk about your mental health and this very important thing that you need to be proactive about your mental health, your mental state, and how to be. And so before I get into that first article, I'm going to go straight into the this kind of long article, so you have to bear with me as I read through it, but it's going to present kind of not in depth, but kind of the some of the arguments and just the discussions back and forth between those who believe that public water should be fluoridated or fluoride should be put in public water, and others who believe it should not because it's dangerous to the brain itself and other things in the body, but primarily the brain. And so listen to this article, worth reading, and then I'll move on to my main subject. Science say fluoride in water is good for kids. So why are these towns banning it? Right? So in the past 5 years, 74 cities have voted to remove fluoride from their drinking water, despite thousands of studies showing it prevents cavities. Right, and this is written by Elizabeth Chuck over there in NBC News. And so it has been hailed by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention as one of the top public health achievements of the 20th century. Numerous studies have proven its safety and efficacy, but fluoride, the naturally occurring compound that prevents cavity and tooth decay, is still sparking heated debates 7 decades after it was first added to America's water supply. Anti-fluoridationists, a small but vocal minority, are disputing long-established science to say that fluoride added to tap water lowers IQ and causes everything from acne to anemia to Alzheimer's. These anti-fluoride believers are active online but also at the polls. In the past 5 years, 74 cities have voted to remove fluoride from their drinking water, according to the American Dental Association. This year, there have been 13 votes around the country on fluoridation, and at least 3 cities have fluoride referendum on the ballots in November. Proposed bans in Brookville, Florida, and Houston, Missouri, and a vote to bring fluoridated water back in Springfield, Ohio. The threat over the fluoride are reminiscent of the unfounded fear that vaccine cause autism, disproved by science, yet steadfast nonetheless. The persistence of fluoride conspiracy theories which emerged in the 1950s with claims that fluoridation was a communist plot to dumb down Americans, is alarming public health officials, including American Dental Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics, who says fluoride is safe, inexpensive way to boost children's oral health. Dr. Johnny Johnson, a retired pediatric dentist who is president of the nonprofit American Fluoridation Society, called the anti-fluoride effort cult-like. Quote, cult-like. You cannot tailor public health to the whims of a small group of people, he says. If you are doing that, you are harming a large group of people. The anti-fluoridationists, though, say it's the fluoride supporters who are harming the public's health. Some argue that the government used fluoride as a form of mind control. Others believe it's designed to boost the sugar lobby by enabling people to eat more sweets without getting cavities. And still others believe that health officials are afraid to reverse course on fluoride after promoting it for decades. They spread the word on Facebook groups like that of the New York State Coalition opposed to fluoridation, which blame fluoride for problems including thyroid damage, was slammed in 2012 for falsely claiming that the federal government recommends avoiding fluoridated water when making infant formula. Reddit user claim fluoride kills gut bacteria, and on Twitter, fluoride is regularly called a cancer-causing neurotoxin. The anti-fluoride movement has also made headway offline. In June, the Texas Republican Party opposed water fluoridation in its 2018 platform. In New Jersey, where more than 80% of residents do not have fluoridated water, the town of East Brunswick stopped fluoridating 3 years ago after Mayor David Stahl called it mass medication of the public. A familiar refrain on anti-fluoridation forums. In Brookville, Florida, a city of 8,000, about an hour north of Tampa, Mayor Betty Erard has said for years that fluoride is a toxin and a waste of taxpayers' money. Next month, at Erhardgen, Brookville will vote on removing it. Quote, I believe that people should consent to what is in their water, Erard said. Some townspeople agree. Fluoride is dangerous, cancer-causing agent. I don't even like taking a shower in it, one wrote on Erard Facebook page. Continue reading here. It says the first place in America to receive fluoridated water was Grand Rapids, Michigan, in 1945, when residents there became guinea pigs for the theory that boosting existing natural fluoride levels in water decreased tooth decay, particularly in children. The experiment by the United States Public Health Service was done without residents' consent, still a point of contention among anti-fluoridationists. Right, so I just want to pause there. I don't want to pause too much in this article. I just want to read it for just to, good update us what's going on with the fluoride movement, or the movement to stop the fluoridation of water. So here in 1945, they had run an experiment without the public's knowledge. So this is something that is always a sticking point amongst those who don't believe in fluoride in water or in anything other than naturally occurring or by supplementation. The experiment was so successful that 11 years into what was supposed to be a 15-year study, researchers announced the rate of cavity among Grand Rapids 30,000 school children had dropped by 60%, but not everyone was pleased. Quote, I was called a murderer and a communist, end of quote. Dr. Winston Prothero, director of the public health in Grand Rapids during the early days of fluoridation, told the Washington Post in 1988. I must have had letters from every city in America and plenty from other countries too. It fell on me to defend the physical and moral health of our entire city. So I'll pause there again. And so problematic here because Dr. Winston Prothero here basically run an experiment in the whole city, giving them a chemical, which is fluoride, in their water so they could drink it every day without telling them and not looking at some of the side effects of fluoride. Anyhow, we continue. Since then, the conspiracy theories have evolved from fear of the communist plot to other worries about purported dangers of fluoride, an abundant element that occurs naturally in water, even when it's not added by government. So I'll pause there again just to say, this is, as it says here, it's a natural element that occurs in water, even if it's not added by government. And as you know, with anything that is started added by the government that is chemical based and is not natural, how much is sufficient? Various different scientists come up with various different barometers to test what is sufficient and what is too much. Anyhow, keep going here. So not a back. Now you have this weird backlash where people think that anything that is chemical is bad, even though everything is a chemical, says the University of Miami Associate Professor Joseph Hushinski, co-author of the book America Conspiracy Theories. There are groups of people who think that if something isn't natural, it is somehow impure or bad, and it grosses them out. And I guess if you listen to me, you know I'm one of those people. To expert, objecting to fluoride is nonsensical. The compound consumed in water or applied topically through toothpaste or mouthwash prevents cavity by replacing weakened structure in the teeth, said Dr. Kerry Maguire, Associate Clinical Investigator for Foresight, an independent research institute specialized in oral health. It's true that too much fluoride can be dangerous. One complication is skeletal fluorosis, which causes stiffening and pain of the joints and bone, or abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. So again, some of the complications, I'll repeat to you, is stiffening of the bones and joints and abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. But these effects only occur with prolonged exposure to far higher levels of fluoride than is found in public water systems in the U.S. Expert says, in this country, the only common side effect of fluoridation is fluorosis of the teeth, minor staining that is often only visible to a dentist. Today, nearly 75% of the U.S. receive fluoridation water from community water systems. That number that Paul Connett, as a chemistry professor of emeritus of St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, hopes to get down to zero. There's umpteen ways that fluoride can cause damage, says Connett, executive director of the nonprofit Fluoridation Action Network, which aims to end fluoridation worldwide. Connett was initially skeptical of concern about fluoride when his wife asked him 2 decades ago about its health effect. The prevailing attitude is that people who are opposed to fluoride are crazy. So I didn't want to be stigmatized in that way, Connett said. But the more he looked into it, the more convinced Connett became that fluoride was indeed toxic. He now cites what he bills as Dynamite 2017 study that concluded that higher prenatal fluoride exposure was associated with lower cognitive outcome in children in Mexico. So you can understand why I was saying now he wants it to be banned in drinking water the world over. Notice here the finding, he says, are consistent with more than 50 other studies that conclude that fluoride lowers IQ. So again, according to Dr. Canet here, he says, look, there's over 50 studies that have pointed to fluoride decreasing IQ. So this is why I say one has to be careful of anything that damages the brain. Err on the side of caution, they say, right? Continue reading here, says, but many dental experts dismiss such studies as bogus, particularly because many of them were done in other countries where natural fluoride levels are far higher than the US, and there may be other factors like polluted water. So it is true. You could go to probably so many different countries in the world, and the water supply, even the groundwater, is highly contaminated. But remember, American water, I guess, would be somewhat equally highly contaminated since the amount of older industry, since the industrial revolution took place here, and so much of the water is contaminated with pharmaceuticals and so forth. The other thing he's saying that the study is bogus because it was the landmark, one of the big ones, were done in Mexico. So this is why I have to pause here, because saying it was done in Mexico and that Mexico has more natural fluoride in its water than, say, the United States. If you look at the map, you quickly realize that most of Mexico historically is the United States. The western part of the western part of the United States and the northern part of Mexico is actually California and those areas there. So a part of that would be, that means you'd have a higher level of fluoridation in the water naturally occurring in, say, California and other places like that. So just to say the study is bogus because it's coming from another country could be true, but it's 50-something studies. So there's something there. And again, it's a chemical that has side effects. And most things that we consume fluid-wise, our brain uses a high percentage of that fluid because it uses so much of the body's blood. And so if your blood is swimming in fluoride, that can't be good for the brain. That's how I see it, at least. But many dental experts dismiss the studies because it's as though you have something you want to prove. So you look at other countries that have naturally high levels of fluoride at multiples of what we have in the United States, and they see changes, and then they backward extrapolate it to water fluoridation, says John Sadhu, the American Fluoridation Society. You can't do that in science, and which is true. Again, you could cherry pick a study and you can get the results you want. But still, if there is a way scientifically to prove that the higher amount of fluoride could lead to lower IQ, period, then that tell me that's something that you don't want to play with, and probably best take it in its natural occurring way. That's what I see from a neutral point of thinking. But we keep reading here because I want to get through this to get to my main topic. Some anti-fluoridation fluoridationists oppose all fluoride, including in toothpaste. Sales of fluoride-free toothpaste are relatively small but projected to grow. An article in the dental journal Gerodontology in August found that such toothpaste have no impact on preventing cavities. Fluoride opponent sees on the warning label on toothpaste cautioning that a poison control center should be called if a child accidentally ingests too much, says that proves fluoride is a toxin. The American Dental Association, which has supported water fluoridation since 1950s, dispute that, pointing out that the amount of fluoride in an entire tube of toothpaste wouldn't be fatal, but other additives would likely cause a child to vomit. As for fluoride in water, there have been literally thousands of studies published in peer-reviewed journals that demonstrate that the safety of community water fluoridation. And the single most important public health measure to prevent cavity. The Florida Action Network disagrees. The group sued the Environmental Protection Agency in federal court in San Francisco last April to stop water fluoridation. Which is more important, protecting your child's brain or protecting your child's teeth? Connect said. This is a very important question. What are you more interested in? Protecting your child's brain or protecting your child's teeth? Child is bright, but they have no teeth. Anyhow, I think obvious the answer is protecting the child's brain. He expect the case to be heard next August, so next year sometime. The EPA said it does not comment on pending litigation. Kentucky, the only state that requires fluoridation in every community water system that serves 1,500 or more people. As a result, 99% of the residents receive fluoridation. Isn't that fascinating? So Kentucky takes a trophy for fluoridating everybody in that state. Anti-fluoridationists have tried to reverse the law, but it is not going anywhere. Dr. Julie Watts McKee, the state dental director of the Kentucky Oral Health Program, a public initiative that carries out community programs to reduce oral cavity, oral disease. The cost of fluoridating water or fluoridate water for a person's entire lifetime is cheaper than the price of a single filling, McKee says. The science, the true science, prove its effectiveness over and over again. It helps people for all ages. It helps the kids better because they have growing teeth and are at cavity-prone age, but it helps us all. Elsewhere in the country, the percentage of residents receiving water varies, with Hawaii having the low end of 11.7%. So there's a map there, and most actually, Kentucky is basically giving everybody fluoridated water, but Hawaii giving 11.7%. New Jersey is at about 14%. It's on the lower end of the scale. Hardly know most municipalities in New Jersey don't feed their community with water. Ironically enough, you think New Jersey is the pharmaceutical capital of the world, and this is where a lot of the big refineries are. So you would think that the state that should be number one in fluoridating the water would be not Kentucky, but would be New Jersey, since New Jersey is awash in chemicals. So that's quite fascinating that some of the lower end on fluoridation is like New Jersey and some of these other type of states. Very interesting. Anyhow, so continue reading here a little bit more, and then we close on this point here, on this issue of fluoridation. It's very difficult to concentrate. It's very, very difficult to concentrate when you have a toothache. And if we are trying to help children succeed in school, that is an important component that is often overlooked. Maguire says it is a winnable war. In Brookville, Florida, where the vote on removing fluoride is just a couple of weeks away, Mayor Earhart has high hopes that her townspeople will vote it out. The city has spent about $19,000 on fluoridation over the past 5 years, and she would like to see that money go someplace else, such as repairing the city's road. Earhart said she doesn't worry about how kids will fare with non-fluoridated water so long as parents do their part to encourage good oral health. If you are feeding them a lot of sugar, naturally you are going to get a lot of cavities, she said. I can tell you firsthand from my experience that I've always brushed and I love going to the dentist and my teeth are healthy. End of article there. So you probably heard a lot about this. Fluoridated water, no fluoridated water. This has been a constant reversal of the trend. Some states are not budging and other states are removing fluoride for the municipal water. The lady had said, the previous person had said, well, Maguire, she said that it's a winnable war because if the kids are in school and they're having toothache, then they can't concentrate. Well, if their brains aren't working, no matter if they have all their teeth intact and their brains are not working, well, they're not going to be able to concentrate either. So I just think I think it's watercress as a herb that naturally occur in fluoride, and then there's naturally occurring fluoride in water. So contemplate well what you do. I believe it's best to protect yourself from all of that. All right, that will take us now to our main point. And the main thing I want to share with you this morning here, that's an important side note. That's a discussion that's always ongoing. And it's this article I want to share and some information about how to deal with depression, suicide as a constant ongoing thing. As you know, the Bible teaches us very clearly that death is the enemy. All right, death is the enemy. Most actually, when you die, you're done. If you're dead, you weren't listening to me now. And so you could have sickness, you could have financial failure, you could have all kind of stuff in your life. But if you died, that's it. Your races came to an end for you. So the Bible says it's a living dog is better than a dead lion. A living dog is better than a dead lion. And so you want to be able to be living, and it's better to be living and not probably in a lion position, but you're in a lion's position, but you're alive and kicking. And so the suicide issue is important because, again, that's an end stage issue here. Like cancer and other things, we want to be serious about that and want to take care of our mental health. Very important for you and I to take care of our mental health. So I'm going to read this article and I'm going to share a few minutes after that on some things to do to make sure that you're in the best of mental health. I can't understress this. This is so important. You don't need to go through your days, not even that whole day, probably for a few hours down. You need to fight back. Anyhow, so as U.S. suicide rate rises, Hispanics shows relative immunity. Support from family, community appear to shield Latinos from rising suicide rates, researchers say. It's written by Charlotte Huff of Kaiser Health News. The young man held the medication in his hand and considered using it to end his life, but then he put it down and said, "No, I need help," before heading to a Laredo, Texas emergency room, said Kimberly Gallegos, who at the time earlier this year was a mobile crisis worker for a local mental health center. Gallegos was helping evaluate whether the patient, a Latino in his early 30s, should be immediately hospitalized or could go home safely until seeing an outpatient doctor. He returned to the home he shared with his mother and a sibling. The family agreed to lock up the medication, which belonged to a family member, and watch out for any problematic behavior and other warning signs of suicide, Gallegos recalled. The man's experience illustrates a suicide paradox, experts say. Even though Latinos face economic disadvantages and other stress in their lives, their suicide rate is about 1/3 that of non-Hispanic whites, both in Texas and nationally. Experts attribute the relatively low suicide rate among Latinos to the cultural strong family and community support system, which appears to provide some degree of protection. It definitely did make me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that now the family was aware of what he was going through and experiencing, and that they would be a lot more vigilant with him, Gallegos says. In Texas, the suicide rate among non-Hispanic whites have been steadily increasing during the past 16 years, from 13.4 deaths per 100,000 residents in 2000 to 19.2 deaths per 100,000 in 2016. Meanwhile, the rates have remained largely unchanged among Hispanics, with 6.7 suicide per 100,000 residents in 2016, the same as the national rate. Nationwide suicide has increased nearly 30% since the turn of the century. As a group, Latinos face obstacles that can affect their health and well-being. They earn less than non-Hispanic whites and are more likely to lack health insurance coverage. In 2017, 16.1% of Hispanics were uninsured compared with 6.3% of non-Hispanic whites, hampering access to mental health care and other treatment. Probably that's helping them. In addition, Latino immigrants contend with the challenges of moving to a new country, sometimes after leaving violence and other traumatic conditions at home. But the practice of collectivismo, the building of a lattice work of relationships through extended family, work colleagues, and friends, is prevalent in the Latino community and can help provide an emotional safety net, said Luis Garcia, who has developed suicide prevention program for Latino youth in California. Even activities such as regular church picnics and salsa dance can help, says Garcia, Vice President of the Cultural Diversity at Arcadia, California-based Pacific Clinic. Latinos and Hispanics have a preference to working in groups, Garcia said. It's something that believed in we practice on a daily basis. To be sure, Latinos are a multifaceted population from numerous countries who shouldn't be viewed through a single lens or a set of assumptions, Garcia and other researchers stress. And not all family and community relationships are necessarily healthy. Still, when immigrant families assimilate and ties to the Latino culture fray, so do the protective effect, according to a study published in 2014 in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. Researchers who analyzed suicide thoughts and attempts found that those inclinations increase as Latinos spend more years in the U.S. and started losing their fluency in Spanish and connection to the Latino social network and identity. In addition, Latino youth appears more vulnerable to suicide attempts than white teens. In 2017, 8.2% of Hispanic high school students attempt suicide in the prior year compared to 6.1% of white and 9.8% of blacks, according to the federal data. Still, the higher rates of teen suicide attempts have not resulted in a corresponding increase in suicide deaths among Latinos for reasons that are unclear. Probably don't have no access to guns as much. A professor at the University of Texas at Austin and author of the book Latinas Attempting Suicide When Culture, Family, and Daughters Collide. One possibility Pacific Clinic Garcia said is that the attempt is a teen cry for help and attention, and there may be an extended cultural support system to fall back on. Sometimes, though, vulnerable individuals must be encouraged to lean on that support. Sarai, a 15-year-old Latina in Southern California who requested that her full name not be used, credits a mental health counselor at the Pacific Clinic with helping her reach out to friends and family rather than bottle up her feelings. Sarai's problems manifested when she began cutting herself. Her family did not notice because she wore long sleeve to cover the marks on her forearms. I thought every time I did it that it would let out some of the frustration and anger and sadness that I had. One day she found herself sitting on the kitchen floor looking at the bleach in the sink cabinet and contemplating suicide. I was just looking at the bottle of bleach and thinking, that is it. I'm just going to do it. But then I heard my mom's footstep and I totally snapped out of it. Still, the experience scarred Sarai enough that she told her family that she needed to talk to someone about her anxiety and they sought professional help. Sarai's counselor persuaded her to share her feelings and rather than inflict pain on herself. Over time, Sarai opened up about her cutting. While families' community support might particularly explain the suicide paradox, it's likely not the only factor. It may also be that some Latino suicide are misclassified in part due to the stigma associated with it, say Ian Rocket, a professor of emeritus at epidemiology at the West Virginia University School of Public Health. And so back in Laredo, Gallegos learned that young men who had contemplated suicide believed suicide was against his family religion and that he had brought shame upon his family even by harboring suicidal thoughts. Once he realized his mother didn't hold such belief, his tense posture began to ease, and Gallegos, who now works as an quality management advisor for the Laredo-based mental health center, he was a lot calmer. Gallegos says he was grateful that his mom was there. End of article. So just wanted to share that little piece of article here to you and talk a little bit about this important facet, as they have noted, that you have a group of people and they're trying to escape violence, poverty, they're looking for opportunity, and they're in a state where they're probably at the end state. They're trying to escape the end state or live in the end state of the prodigal son. And so they're trying to fight for survival. And so in their effort to fight for survival, then I think they're preoccupied with living, not dying. So I believe in that state, yes, the person would not be so caught up with the type of, first world problems that people kill themselves over because they're trying to survive third world problems. And also, when you're fighting for survival, you tend to fight in a pack. You're not self-made millionaire. You're basically fighting for survival, and you have other people around you that are doing the same thing. So I think that tend to lead to more community, more protective. You're protected in groups. If you saw yesterday, there's a new caravan of immigrants heading to America from Honduras, and the caravan is getting larger. People tend to feel more comfortable when you have others around. But first world nation kind of thing is that the more you have is the more independent you can be of others because you don't need their help. Less community, and that I think leads to less support. Normally when you're feeling depressed, you talk to somebody. You don't even go to a counselor because there's no such thing. You can't afford that. You go talk to somebody that is a friend, and you forget about your troubles. But in a first world situation, you're isolated. You have no friends because you're independent. You don't need people because you have your own money, and then you realize that money can't buy love or can't buy friendship. But that's how, to me, the difference is. When you're struggling to steal food from the pigs and to take food from dogs because you're trying to rob the dog of food so you can survive. I think that can be a distraction in itself. You're trying to eat the crumbs off the master's table. It's a distraction in itself, and when you get some crumbs, you're so happy, and the master's like depressed, and he has all the food on his table. I think that's kind of where that ideology comes from, and that's to me is how I look at it. Like I always say, to steal food from dogs or from pigs, like the prodigal son, you're just fighting for survival. You're just busy trying to get your next meal. And you kind of tend to be so engaged in that process that you sometimes forget that you're depressed. So that's kind of what it is. So if you notice there, they say that as now that person leave now, walking across the desert, stealing into America to get a job, working for less than minimum wage. As they start to get settled into American life, as their kids go to school, then they start to be depressed. You start to think about body image instead of thinking about I need some food to feed this body. So that makes sense. And as that person assimilate, they start to assimilate into the lifestyle. To me, that is a depressing lifestyle. The first world lifestyle can be very isolating and depressing. To me, the suicide rate is to be linked to that idea, of you know I can't be happy without material possession. You see, but you think about the first world is you're happy because of material possession. Third world is you're just happy because you have some people around you and you can eat some food. You can eat some food. So if I can eat some food and have some sunshine and have some friends, I'm happy, and I really didn't know that I'm supposed to be sad. Here you have all the money, but you have no friends, you have no food, you have all the food, but the food making you sick. So that I want to talk about with you a little bit. I want to talk about with you because, as you know, the depression is a little bit more complicated. So how do you deal with this? As I say, you have to be proactive about your mental health. Now, often, it happens with male and female. Female most naturally have higher rates of, what you would call it, not suicides per se, but mental breakdown. They just break and have a mental crash. But suicide is higher in male. Male are more successful. Male are more successful in killing themselves, especially male with guns. And this is why the numbers with female male that are white are often more successful. They have probably lower attempts, but higher success rate because it just splat their brain. So male gender is a big complication. So if you're male, especially, you need to be more proactive about your mental health. The pressure, for the most part, on a male is very strong. It doesn't mean the pressure on a female is not there. It's just that males are more likely to take themselves out. So if you're a guy, be very active about this. But everybody has to be active because female crash all the time. They just probably do less suicide and they just lose their mind. And that's it. Guy, before he loses his mind, he just blows his brain out. Understand that drugs and alcohol abuse breaks the brain and make it weaker. So one has to be proactive about getting off drugs and learning to have other coping mechanism other than alcohol and drugs. If you do prior suicide, then you have to be extra precautious. It's just like anything else. Any sin that we did in the past, we have to be more on our guard against that sin. That's something that we never practice. So prior suicides have to be there. If you have a family history of depression and suicide, you have to be more active to fight and be more proactive than, say, somebody that doesn't have a history in their families. If you know people in your family have weak mental state, that tells you that their brains are weaker. And it's no different with any disease. Think about it. If in your family, people in your family have weak pancreas or weak kidney, weak liver, weak heart, weak thyroid, weak brain, weak sinus, weak whatever, weak skin, you have to be more proactive for that body part than anybody else because it's a genetic weakness that more or less passed on to you. One of the biggest things that I've come to realize with people with mental health problem or any problem is their unwillingness to seek help. And you look at it is that each of us have some kind of area that we're strong in. And so if you have a weak mental state, there's no shame in the game. Everybody has some weakness. It's just a problem with mental health. People often are in denial or they're ashamed. But you need to woman up or man up and just acknowledge the fact that that's the lot you've been given in this life and just deal with it. And one of the easiest way to deal with this is simply to seek help. And don't seek help from other people who are mentally weak. You seek help from somebody, an individual or professionals who are strong. And I'm gonna tell you, if you say I'm gonna go seek professional help, and you realize you deal with a weak-minded psychologist, just cut that person and go find somebody else. Iron sharper than iron. You don't try to use leaves to sharpen a knife. It won't work. You don't get like a nice bell pepper and say I'm gonna use this to sharpen my knife. It won't work. So you don't find a bell pepper of a person that's delicate, and then you go to them and say, oh, my brain is weak. Let me go to them and let them strengthen my brain. You waste your time. Um, that's just the reality. So don't refuse help, and if somebody offer you help, do not reject the help. Most people have any type of health problem. Their problem is most of the time they reject the help. And I'm a believer that God sent help because God loves us. But we refuse the help and then we say, God, work me a miracle in secret. No, everybody knows your weakness. Don't fool yourself. Stressful lifestyle. Know that stress will break the brain. Notice a lot of women have mental breakdown when they're just having a child. Before or after the child is born, the pressure is just unreal. Seek help again. Don't be ashamed to cry out and say, I need help. Don't sit there and go into depression, in loneliness. As I say, first world lifestyle is that you're supposed to be okay. Because, this is what most people say, well, you have all the money, you have everything. What's your problem? When you have time and you see the news, an article about a superstar having mental health problem, go in the comment section and read the commenters, and you see how they denigrate the person. Like, poor you with your millions of dollars and you're depressed. Most people think that if a person has money, they shouldn't be depressed. Actually, that can lead to more depression. It's not a good thought to think that everybody in your life, you bought them. That's a depressing thought. Just think about that. If you look at everybody around you and they're happy, smiling, and you think, wow, and none of them would be here if I was broke. That's very depressing. So don't think that a person in a first world situation, even in a first world situation, can't be depressed. It can be more so, especially as I say, when everybody around you, you bought them. It's a good thing to live in this life to have people around you for just who you are. And that's it. So understand that. Other issues that can push it on, health, diet, and lifestyle, and other body imagery problem. So understand it again. Not all of us are born with the most beautiful symmetrical physique. It would be nice, but not on this side of the Jordan. So if you have any of those things, yeah, don't take these things too much to heart. We all have good and bad. We all have good, strong traits and weak traits. Recognize that. If you're older, recognize the fact that loneliness is not supposed to be part of your life. I think as people get older, they get jaded and they get stuck in their personality weaknesses and push people away, and people start to avoid them. I think most people say, oh, no, it's because they're old, they're friendless. Often because people are old, they're pushing everybody away. Remember, God is a system. That system is called confession and repentance. You practice that system, you'll have a personality that is warm. Remember, you can be a natural magnet, or you can be a magnet by practice. Pull people to you. You don't have to make people seek you out. You seek people out. You attract people by you pulling people into you. Most people, as they get older, they become acceptance of loneliness and friendlessness. And this makes out a depressing situation totally unnecessary. Pick up your phone, call somebody. That can help. Notice that a nutrient deficient diet can be part of the problem of suicide and depression. Nutrient deficient diet. And so you want to be able to eat the food that looks the happiest. Isn't that beautiful? Eat happy food and you'll be happy. So this is what you want to do. And not the chemically happy food, but the naturally organic grown happy food. The foods with more colors. So you look at your plate, it's like, look at my plate, it looks so happy. And then that's what you want to eat. And so normally if you start eating like that, you start solving a large percentage of your nutritional needs by just eating food that looks happy so you can be happy. So make your food be vibrant. Make it be a lot of greens and reds and orange and purple and all that. And you eat that type of food on your plate and you'll be happier. And that's what it is. You want to make sure that you do things to make you happy. Serotonin levels is a thing that one needs to change. And so serotonin, which optimize tryptophan to optimize serotonin production. So I'll get to that in a second. Eat omega-3 foods that have high omega-3 fatty acids. So your things like flaxseed and stuff like that. Reduce your protein intake and high in meat intake. Remove meat. I believe you eat crazy animals, you probably start acting crazy like them. You want to walk around like a chicken going pluck, 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 then you probably eat a lot of chicken. You want to not do that, then avoid your chicken. Know that certain metals, heavy metals, can damage the brain. Most actually, top on this list is lead. This is why lead poison is so dangerous. You saw what happened over there in Michigan, in that state where they had the lead poisoning in the water damaging the kid's brain. You want to stay away from that. Mercury. So if you have amalgam mercury filling, don't play games with this thing. Just go right in and find a dentist and start drilling those amalgam dental filling out of your brain. You're poisoning your brain with all that mercury in your teeth. It's too close to the brain and to the bloodstream of the brain. Go right in ahead. As I say, it's nothing wrong to take abundance of precaution. Remember, we are washed in chemicals and heavy metals in our society. The more modern society is the more we are swimming in a sea. Hopefully that is overstating it. You can't overstate this type of stuff. We are swimming in a sea of all kind of toxic chemicals. We interact with so many modern gadgets that are not fully tested, no matter what they tell me. So no, as much as you can reduce all these toxic chemicals out of your contamination supply, whatever is contaminating your body, you do it. So remember, these things cause mercury cause sensitivity in interaction with others, so you become irritable. It's caused avoidant behaviors. You try to avoid people, depression and fatigue and lethargy. So this is what mercury does. So don't play with this. If you have a little bit of money, go ahead and pay the dentist one at a time to drill those things out of your head and put in some natural. Make sure they put it in natural, like porcelain or something like that in your teeth, and so forth. These mercury comes to us via fish. So some people say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian, I eat fish." You fool yourself. What you're eating is mercury. It's some cheap fish from some of these mercury-filled waters. Vaccines give you this. Beef and other meats give you concentration of mercury. Other things to look out for is bismuth, arsenic, and so forth. Remember, social factors are important. Don't abuse yourself socially. So sexual fornication will help push depression. You don't want to abuse yourself in a social way. It's not going to lead to a happier lifestyle. Notice your physical inactivity. The more you exercise, the more you feel better. Exercise is linked to almost the healthy outcomes of all diseases. Proper sleep is important. Know when it's time for winter, that you get less light. As a matter of fact, it's already less light already. It's just overcast most days of the week. One of the things they do that I've suggested to others that they do it and it work. You go online and search for light therapy for seasonal affect disorder light. So you just search that phrase, seasonal affect disorder light. It's a light that you can have. You can even have it. I think Philips make one, which is one of the big company that does light therapy, that you can have it at the side of your bed. And so it comes on as an alarm. And for half an hour, it gives you some light treatment first thing in the morning to lift your mood. And it works. I've used not this one, but I've used Philips product, and they're normally well researched light therapy products. So look at that to help your winter depression. It normally starts about this time of the month and it goes into April for 6 months. Be proactive, as I say, about your mental health. Most naturally, as you know, There's many other things that covers that. And so notice again, if you know somebody is pregnant, through their pregnancy, after their pregnancy, try to help as much. If the person will take help, there's some people will destroy their brain by refusing to take help, and there's nothing you can do about this. But as you know, person newly married or they're having a child, that's the best time to support them, because that's when they're going to go through some severe changes, and it's nothing wrong to try to help. Remember, tryptophan will help with the brain production of serotonin. Most people, this is what they're missing. This is why exercise help and other things help. The foods that have the highest content of tryptophan that will help the body produce serotonin are these in order. Number one source of tryptophan is tofu. Number two, pumpkin seed, gluten flour, sesame seed, almonds, black walnut, black eyed peas, or black eyed cowpeas. Those are the high source of tryptophan naturally. So you want to be able to have a diet with these things rich in tryptophan, so your body have the natural building block to convert to serotonin. All right, few more thoughts here. Most naturally, science has proven well that to get rid of like bipolar, unipolar, manic depression is to have high sources of omega-3. Now, most naturally, omega-3 can be found in fish, but it also can be found in flaxseed. So your best source of this is flaxseed, because you don't have to worry about the mercury that would mess up your brain. So then you partake of at least 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons a day, depends on how much you need of flaxseed meal. You can put it in your nut milk, in your nut shakes, in your smoothie. You can have it in various different cooking, because flaxseed meal acts as a binder similar to egg in your cooking. So you can use it as an egg replacer. So it will help bind any type of baking goods there. So you put flaxseed in various different things, and you will help yourself to deal with it. So most I shoot out some quick things here. Regular exercise. You don't have to exercise hard. Just exercise. Regular restful sleep. Bright light therapy, which is the SAD, the season affect disorder light. These type of light therapies have been proven to be very effective to lift people out of depression, especially in winter or in states that are northern states. So use this therapy about half an hour a day, whatever is recommended. You fight negative thinking. When you go into a negative thoughts, you have more self-control than you possibly know. You just have to exercise it. So you break the thought, whatever depressing thought you're thinking, negativity about a person, negativity about a past life trauma, whatever it is, you can break the thought and think about something else. How you do this, you pray, you sing in your brain, you do have a pet thought that you think about that is positive. You do stuff, you practice some exercise and mental exercises to keep your mind off negative thinking about past, whether it be something somebody did to you or you did in the past. Social support is what I read about earlier. Very important. Church, having friends, communicating to others, all these various different things are social support. And don't wait for somebody to do it for you, because again, we have a culture that is very toxic because he has too much money. And the more you see where people have too much, they tend to become very selfish and avoid people and end up becoming very suicidal and depressed. Make your social support work for you. Have your social network. Don't reject, refuse help. Don't never discount doing the right thing. Don't never discount simple things like taking a shower or taking a bath, doing a massage, using things like Epsom salt in a bath. Those simple little things are things to do that will help you feel better about your life and will help you avoid suicide. So be proactive about your mental health. Treat yourself today. Make something nice for yourself to eat, or do something nice for yourself, or think about yourself in a nice way. Whatever it is, even if it's just a thought, God will bless you and you'll feel better about life. Let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I pray that you may bless us as we walk humbly before thee. May we choose, dear Lord, the good. May we choose the thing that will bless us and bless others around us. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with me on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow morning again live when we should talk about current events. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with Jesus.